They were literally sitting on the side of the road and saw a McDonald's, and my dad thought, I wonder how you get one of those. You've got these young kids who are like 23, 24, running a multi-million-dollar business profitably and brilliantly. That training, you can't get that training anywhere. And we didn't want to be together anymore, and that's when things got really, really complicated. Yeah.
It's not just a marital divorce, it's a business divorce as well. So welcome to the Significant Women podcast. I am your host, Georgia Barkell, and I explore how families build, steward, and sustain wealth across generations through stories examining the culture, dynamics, choices, and legacy of these families. In conversation with the women in significant families, I explore the roles of wealth creator, matriarch, next generation, and inheritor within a layered family dynamic, highlighting insights we can all learn from. This podcast is for everyone in a family. I hope this story resonates with you, and I'd be grateful for any feedback, perspectives, or referrals you may have. Please click the follow button, and you can find all episodes at Kinexis, that's kinexis.au/Significant Women Podcast. Today, I'm with Christy Morris, who is the second generation of a family with its foundations in professional rugby league and a portfolio of food franchises. Christy has her own journey across multiple businesses and is the co-founder of the Kylo Wellness brand and products, an endeavour shaped by her commitment to improving health and well-being for her family. Her story touches on blended families across generations, the intersection of divorce, asset protection and business ownership, and finding one's own identity outside of the family enterprise. Welcome, Christy, and thank you for joining me and sharing your story.
Hi, Georgia. Thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
Okay, so let's start with, can you tell me the origins about your family and your family enterprise and a little bit about your parents and how you grew up?
Yeah, so both my parents came from just normal, everyday, humble beginnings. And throughout my dad's journey, he was a professional rugby league player. And then in that time met my mum, they got married. And then in those first few years of football, they moved to Sydney, then back to Brisbane. And when my dad retired, they initially had a sports store. And then they were literally sitting on the side of the road and saw a McDonald's. And my dad thought, I wonder how you get one of those. And back then you only had pay box telephones. So
pay box. I love that.
So he literally
They didn't have the dial. Did they have the dial?
Yeah.
The rotating dial.
With
I remember that.
The Refidex in there. They used to. Do you remember that when they had them in there?
Yes, on a chain.
On a
So
chain.
you couldn't steal them.
Yeah, and he went in, found the head office number, called up, and just inquired, how do I get one of these McDonald's stores? Not realizing the journey that was about to happen because it's a really big process. So my parents then went into McDonald's after going on the training. My dad had to move back to Sydney. My mum had to work 2 jobs in Brisbane because you're unpaid when you do your training. And started, they opened their first store in Brisbane in 1985. And then back then, it was not common to have more than 1, 2 at max. And so my dad was the first to be multi and ended up having 6 McDonald's restaurants through the 90s and into the early 2000s. So, I grew up in the McDonald's world.
Yeah, amazing. And tell me about your journey as a child and the sort of values that your parents instilled in you. You said they were humble, which is just wonderful, and the values they brought to the family and your journey, through school and beyond.
Yeah, I remember vividly the day the store opened, being there. They always included us as children as part of work, and they never. You can often hear people, almost apologize for having to go to work. My parents, I never grew up hearing that. It was always a positive. And so I would be sitting on the drive-through floor, all the way up until 8 p.m. sometimes. My parents both worked full-time all day, every day when they opened. And so I think those foundations, without knowing it as a little child, just seeing your parents work together as one, as a team, but 2, like mum would take me home, dad would go back in, vice versa. And so they managed that. And then I grew up just naturally starting to serve customers. By the time I was 12, I was working shifts at McDonald's. And then all the way through high school, always had to work, even if it was a friend's birthday, whatever. If you were rostered, that was that. And I think I'm very grateful for those foundations because work ethic was instilled. And I remember one time Mum calling me, I was at home, this is when I was a bit older, and I was probably 15. That staff didn't show up. Mum's like, I'm sending you a taxi, you're coming into work. And of course, as a 15-year-old, I'm thinking, I don't want to do that. I'm hanging out with my friends, but when you come. And so I think it sort of set me up without even knowing of what hard work and what teamwork is as a family from my whole life, just being in that environment.
I love that. And quite lovely in a way that your parents could share their work with you.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of parents go away and they go to work
Mm-hmm.
somewhere else and the kids aren't involved. So it's actually a really interesting environment to grow up in.
Yeah, it was fun. It was, and all the managers were like family, really. They'd sometimes pick me up from school because Mum couldn't leave the shift. So yeah, I look back with the best memories of that time.
And I mean, every kid wants to work in McDonald's. So, the free burgers.
I was going to say all the French fries I used to eat.
I love that. And tell me, so you started working behind the counter at 12, but you ended up finishing high school in the States.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
So the school I went to had a cultural exchange program, which was 9 weeks, and I went on that. And when I came back, this is where probably what my parents instilled of being unrelenting came to fruition because I wanted to go back and do year 11 and 12. My parents were like, you're not going back, like you live here. And so every day for 6 months at the breakfast table, I would go on and on and on about it. And then after 6 months, my parents remembered, well, for God's sake, you can go back. Like we were sick of hearing about it. And so I ended up going to Montana and doing year 11 and 12 over there. And I think that also gave me a worldly different perspective traveling on my own all the way over there at 15. I was almost 16 by the time I went back, and just being more independent and just looking at life very differently. I can remember my parents saying, why are you going to this tiny little house with a house full of 5 people where you're sharing one bathroom? They thought that was hilarious that I wanted to go and live that life. I think I just wanted really different and just very normal. I was really attracted to that.
Did you want to get away, maybe?
It wasn't that I wanted to get away from my life or anything, so I had a wonderful upbringing, but I think I really wanted that American ranch style. I always used to beg my parents to be a boarder, and I wanted to be more country. I had always had that in me, and so I think going to Montana and snow and very different lifestyle, I loved it. It was incredible.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Does any of that follow through now with your life today? Do you have a bit of a country vibe going on in your life?
I don't. I think one day we would love to have a property outside of Brisbane, and I've always loved to go hiking or be more in nature when you can. Very different once you've had children and you're working. But yeah, I've always been connected more to that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And tell me, you finished school, you came home.
Came home and then went straight into McDonald's. I was not an academic school. I never did well at school. I actually think I really struggled at school to get good grades. It was not for me. And when I came back, I started as a crew person at McDonald's. And then by the time I was 18, I went into management and started my training, knowing that if I could do that over the next 4 to 5 years, if McDonald's was to be an option later, I would already be set up to be able to do that. It was always part of one day you'll have McDonald's.
And tell me about this 4 to 5 years that you talk about. What's the process? Because it is so much deeper than anyone can imagine, actually being able to own a McDonald's franchise, but then going through the process to be ready for it.
Yeah, McDonald's is its own world, own law. It has its own massive system. So when you're second generation, and I think they've done this to make sure that people don't think, oh, I'm entitled to it, so I'll do it. They want to see that you're committed to the journey. So you have to do a minimum of 4 years. I think now in 2026, it's 6 years for a second gen. But when I was going through, it was 4 years. You had to complete every stage. They have all the courses that you have to study. And then at the end, you have to get to restaurant manager level, then supervisor level. And then you also have to be able to open a brand new store and show that you can do that perfectly and hit all the KPIs. It's a big process. Huge. Yeah.
Sounds harder than university, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Well, I think it's teaching you also practically,
Yes.
but then you have the study. So they sort of do both. And people don't often realize you've got these young kids who are like 23, 24, running a multi-million-dollar business profitably and brilliantly. That training, you can't get that training anywhere.
No,
It's
that's
incredible.
phenomenal, isn't
Yeah.
it? And then, but you didn't stay in McDonald's at around that sort of early 20s mark.
Yeah.
What did you do?
So I left McDonald's and then Virgin Australia had just come to Brisbane. And I don't know if you remember, but
I do.
Yes. Like
It was very exciting.
And I remember my mum, because they always said, get your training done early and then go off and do you.
Yes.
And then when you're ready, come back. So I went into Virgin Airlines and I was an air hostess initially. And I only did that for a couple of years and realized I was a lot more of a routine girl than I realized. I loved the company, but didn't love the travel. And then a Gloria Jeans franchises were coming to Brisbane. And then I opened a Gloria Jeans franchise at the age of 24. And it was my dad who was like, that would be a good stepping stone. If you can open up a small business like that, one day it'll be McDonald's. So you can sort of get to that level. And that was, in that time is when I met my first husband. He was a customer of mine at Gloria Jeans. And then,
wow.
Yeah, so that sort of then started from there.
I love that. Okay, let's keep going on that story then.
Yeah.
Tell me about that journey. You met your first husband while you had your Gloria Jeans franchise and you decided together to actually start your own McDonald's franchise.
Yeah.
Do you want to take me through how you decided to structure that and that process?
So when we got married, my ex-husband, he had to do the training as well. So I'd done my training. Now he had to go through the 4 years. And in that time that he was doing his training, I had sold the Gloria Jeans and had been headhunted back to Virgin in HR. And I thought, well, you know what? Doing HR for those few years while he's doing his training, it will be a great asset for when we go into McDonald's to have that level of knowledge. And so we went in, I think, I'm just trying to remember, I was pregnant when he then had to go to the board and go through all of that process at the end. And then our first child was 8 weeks old when he went to the board. So we both went down together. You get interviewed together. And then because of divorce, they have a system now in McDonald's where the McDonald's franchise can only be in one person's name. Whereas when my parents went through, it's in both their names. And so here I am sitting there with an 8-week-old baby, and you make a decision that it makes sense. He's the one who's done the most recent training. I will be home. And we decided together that when our children are of school age, I would enter back in to the business. And so then we bought our first McDonald's restaurant off my parents, and we continued to buy off my parents as well as opening our own restaurant. And then once we were a decade in together, and we didn't want to be together anymore. And that's when things got really, really complicated. Yeah.
So the McDonald's franchises are in his name. And what happened next?
So that then took on its own 7-year journey. And in that time, it definitely affected our whole family. I've got 2 brothers, and I can completely recognize and appreciate from their perspective. He's their now ex-son-in-law going to walk away with in their eyes, their father's legacy. And McDonald's, once we sort of got to I think it was around the 6th year, McDonald's had said they were open to me redoing a year of training. And
this is 6 years post deciding to, wow.
Yeah, so it took all of that time to come to some form of agreement. And then McDonald's also don't like being told by anyone how this is going to be. They have their own rules. And I get it. They're protecting their structure, and that's why they're so successful. And I think going through that process, I had a year, but I had already opened Kylo by this stage. But I felt I had to fight for what was my parents' hard work and legacy and bring it back in, like half of it back to the family. Like I felt that and carried that really deeply. And by the time I got to the end of that training and I did hit every KPI and I opened a new store and I did all of the things while working full-time at Kylo as well with 3 children by this stage, the board said we will not approve a second-gen divorce to have 2 people in as like they just didn't think that that would work out. Imagine us all in head office meetings together and you've got an ex-husband and an ex-wife, even though we get along. And now they've changed the rules. Second gen is only bloodline because of our divorce. So they could see the complexity, but they were not willing to support it and start a whole new precedent. So yeah, it's had a huge effect on our family. And I think it's one that will be forever. Had we set things up differently, we could have had a different outcome.
Yeah. How do you think that affected your parents and their thought? You said you felt really obliged because of this legacy. Did your parents feel this legacy had to be kept together as well?
I think without realizing it, my whole life I've been brought up that when you have McDonald's, it was just always when you have McDonald's. And so subconsciously that's built into you. And so the guilt of a marriage not working out and thinking we've bought 3 of these stores off my parents and how can I allow this to unfold this way? And I felt physically like so guilty for years. And my parents have been amazing and they have said, we just want you to be happy. But when we were going through the separation, they were like, you have to fight for this. You have to get this back into the family. And I think, especially when I think about my brothers and the complexity there. And then when it didn't work out, you just move through it. And my parents have been incredible about it. They're like, we just want you to be happy. And they realize that Kylo, for me, is my passion. I wasn't passionate about McDonald's. I was passionate about the upbringing that I had in McDonald's and the training and everything that it taught me. But my love and passion is in health and wellness. And so it was the best thing that ever happened.
Yes. Such a positive take from that situation.
Yeah.
And such a hard decision, I can imagine, making the decision to separate from your children's father, but also to be so intertwined in business as well. It's not just a marital divorce, it's a business divorce as well. So I praise you for your courage because that was a 7-year journey. That's really hard. So talk to me about Kylo and why, what your journey was into health and wellness and why you started Kylo.
Yeah, and Kylo started really out of when my eldest was 4 years old. He had his own health journey around severe OCD, and there wasn't a lot of options in Australia outside of medication. So a long story short, I moved over to LA to do some treatment for him that was available through an incredible pediatrician over there and was able to, so I ended up living there off and on for 2 years. And that in that time is when my ex-husband and I separated. And I think that's just when you're going through something in relation to a child, I think it can really put a lot of pressure on a marriage. So he was living back here, he was coming over, but I was over there with our 2 children. And what I saw in LA was all of these incredible options and modalities and luxury meets wellness. And I thought there is a huge gap in Australia. And when I went back the second time, I had met a family friend. I had met someone at school who was going through something similar, but she didn't know about what you could do in the US. We connected. She moved to LA with me with her son. And then it was her and I, it was my business partner that I had for 7 years, Kath. And we came up with the idea of Kylo. We thought, imagine if we could bring like luxury, wellness, medical all together in one space. And so that was in 2015. So it took all the way through to 2018 for us to then open Kylo MediSpa. And we started with 6 practitioners in the business. And today, 8 years in, we're at 43 practitioners in the business. We have everything from longevity doctors to cosmetic nurses who do IV therapy. We have doctors that come in from overseas to see people that then they can go and do stem cell treatment in different places in the world, which has been amazing. And then all your high-level skin. And then we have sort of the more spa side that supports the hotel, being the Kalal Hotel. and we have nutritionists, we have a microbiome psychologist.
Oh my gosh.
So it's everything from, it's your one-stop shop. You can go there and have a facial, you can go and have laser, you can go and have an IV, you can do cosmetic, you can have a body treatment.
Wow.
Whatever
you need.
Yeah. And then
to
I
feel
think
better.
whatever you
To
need
be
to
more
feel
healthy.
better. And if we don't know or you need, we will find the right practitioner wherever that
That's
is.
amazing.
And then through that time, my personal passion for supplementation and how that can support you, I then went out on my own, and Kath was very supportive. It wasn't her passion or journey, but I started Kylo Nutrition and launched that in 2022. And now that's the product that's gone international now. And
And that's a supplement product.
And that's a supplement product focusing on gut health. Everything I learned that Noel was going through as a little boy was really around gut health.
Yes.
And sleep health, immune system. And now in 5 weeks, we're opening, my now husband and I are opening our own wellness cafe that will have the supplements that'll be in all the drinks and baked goods and
in Brisbane?
In Brisbane and West End.
I love that.
Yeah, so we're excited about
amazing.
that. Yeah, so it's sort of Kylo is becoming its own ecosystem.
Yeah, it really seems like it. And if I can just double click on that point around children and their needs, because we share neurodiversity in our family as well. And this is something that I'm on the constant quest for my child as well, and my children in general and us as a family. What, aside from gut, were there any particular treatments that you found from that experience in LA and through your research that have been really useful?
Yeah, it is so fascinating. We did all the genetic testing to see what mutations, and as a whole family, we ended up doing it. And it's funny how it comes down the bloodline, because my dad has the undermethylation mutation I do.
Oh, wow.
And then so does my son, and it can present it as OCD.
Yes.
And so what it means is you are not absorbing methyl B12, and then if you're low in that, even if you have it regularly, it's how your body absorbs it. And if it's not absorbing it, it's just going through. And I think we were 12 weeks into supplementing Noel with little mini baby injections that he didn't even know he was having at age 4. The OCD was gone. And, you know, he could have been put on Ritalin, which I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But if they can look at it genetically, and then he was also really, really low in vitamin A. The pediatrician did a test, and he was having like those seizures where you just blank out. You blank out.
Yeah.
And it was because he was so dangerously low in vitamin A.
And what do we need vitamin A for?
That's a very good question. That's so long ago now. You're really testing me. But I know at the time we had to go on a prescription dropper that you have to be very careful, because you also can't have too much vitamin A.
Yep.
For 8 weeks, and then just built over 8 weeks, just came back, and that stopped. And then we did what was called NeuroFit. That is a program that's designed to recreate new brain fibers, and it's specific movements, retraining you as if you're a baby all the way through over a 12-week period. It's very hard to explain. A very good friend of mine and her husband brought the concept to Australia and had NDIS funding, and they had it for, I think, almost 10 years. And then NDS pulled it, sadly, so they shut it down. It's just not affordable otherwise for people.
And is that an occupational therapy type program?
Yeah. And basically, by the end of it, Noel was able to throw a ball behind him, eyes closed, turn around and catch it. Like, it helps with all your fine motor
God, I don't even think I can do that.
It is incredible for a little boy that, and he was then able to go and walk on sand for the first time, which he would never do. All of those things, and it was all just rewiring the brain, and then all through nutrition and supplementation based on his genetic mutation. So there's an incredible doctor in Brisbane who does all of this, who's been trained by the pediatrician over in the US.
Amazing.
And she's the pediatrician to neurodivergent children and to NFL players.
Oh, wow.
So how interesting is that? So she puts them through the fit, so their fine motor skills are quicker and faster.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and does all the hyperbaric chamber therapy, and there's so many things you can do. It's a bit of
it's trial and error though, isn't it?
Yeah, because every child is different.
Definitely.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's such a big space, and you know, we're still going through that journey as well. So it's great to hear some of your wins in that space. Thank you. So tell me, Kylo, this is such a passion of yours. Having been through everything you went through with your first husband and the business with him, did you set up this business differently from an asset protection perspective?
Yeah, it's really interesting that you bring that up. And I think that was our biggest lesson as a family initially, is that we didn't set things up. And I don't think anyone in our family has done that. And now, if I look at how we're doing things, my now husband, he comes from his own, I guess, side where his parents have been successful, and they're from Turkey. So they have all their properties overseas and multiple properties here in Australia. And so we've had a child together. So I feel like I am my youngest child because I've got two half brothers from my dad's first marriage. And then, so I've got two children to a first marriage. And then I've now got one child with my now marriage. So I really understand him wanting to protect his own, where he comes from and what his family, for his only child.
Yes.
And so I've been really open to working through that with him and how we set things up. So we've been, I guess all of this has just made us just honest.
Yes.
You've just got to be honest with no emotion attached. It's just got to be about what's best for everybody, not because if you get too emotionally attached to it, then you can end up in an argument. And when you talk about money, it's the most complex thing, right? So we've just been really honest, and he can have his view. I don't take it personally, and I share my view, and we've just worked that out, and we've set the business up in a particular way where a higher percentage comes over to my side because I have 3 children.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
Yes.
And then we've set things up on his side to protect what his parents have, so that when that comes down the line, that his only child is protected too. Yeah.
Do you think it's easy to have that conversation when both parties bring something equal-ish to the table?
I mean, I can only go on my own experience, I guess. But if I look at my now marriage, yes, we both have families that have significance behind them in that, especially from a property perspective. And maybe first time round wasn't like that. So and you know what? And I hate saying this, but I think because I was the female, and this has been one of my biggest lessons that I want to teach my children. But as the female, I never thought, because I came from having my parents with wealth, didn't think maybe if I was the son, would I have had this conversation and protected because I've got a girl coming? I don't know. But I just feel like I didn't have that conversation because I didn't think about it.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
That could we say that it was an assertiveness of your position in the relationship, perhaps, that you were bringing something special to the relationship, which is your family history and your family legacy and wealth, and that's valuable to you regardless of whether you're a female or a male?
It should be. And I think I was so young first time I got married that none of what unfolded could I ever have foreseen. And I was too young to be able to probably articulate that or understand it. So you just 23, 24 and married at 25. None of this came up in a conversation. And I already had 3 properties by the time I was 25. And so, whereas now as a mature woman and having been through that, I'm extremely protective, and I've been very different in my second marriage around that. And I have a husband who's really okay with that and gets it.
Could you say that it's not just that you're trying to protect the money, but you're also trying to protect what you've built?
Yes.
And your identity and your legacy. It's not really about the money. It's about what you've spent your life building.
Yeah, I think you've nailed that. It's never about the money. It's always about the achievement and the hard work that you've put in and something that you have worked towards. That it's always, to me, about what's just. I'm very particular around justice in that way, and I will teach all 3 of my children to be exactly that. You just got to protect what's yours and what you've done, and then feel free to do whatever you like with that. But I think you have to protect. And then I also think about everything that my parents have had to do to get to where they are today. Different times too. Yeah,
very different times. And if, without going into too many details, if you don't want to, can you give me some examples of the type of structures maybe that you've set up in your family to achieve the outcome of, protecting what you've built? supporting the 3 children that you have versus your husband and what he brings and his one child. And can you give me a little bit of information around the sort of structures that you've set up or the mechanisms you've used to protect those?
Yeah. I think for us, everything that I already had before my now husband and I met, for me personally, is just to divide by 3 for my children equally. And then we've got a structure around us going into our first business together and how we're working that out based on the percentage that my husband's chosen to go in on. And so that exact percentage will go to his child, and then the rest will be divided by 3.
And is that just based on a shareholding percentage? Is it
Yeah.
as simple as that?
Yeah, like just for example, let's say it's 30%.
Yes.
Like I'm just making this up, but 30% will automatically go to that child if we were to divorce tomorrow or whatever, and then my side gets divided by 3. And now that might sound unfair to someone who's listening to it, but if you think about it, my 2 children already have a father who has significant wealth now. And so those 2 children, so we've got to make sure the 3rd child is not going to miss out. And then everything that comes from my husband's side will automatically go down that line. Yeah. And so he's protected to carry that on.
Yes. And shareholding is one thing. Have you also considered using a binding financial agreement, a BFA?
Yeah, we're just redoing all of that now that we're
Yes.
doing this and working through. It's quite complicated, isn't it? But yeah,
Yes.
because I've not done this properly
No.
before, so we're just working through all that at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for anyone listening, a BFA is the new name for a prenup.
Yeah.
And the great thing about a BFA is that you can do it at any point. You don't need to be married. It could be for any reason at any time. And the experience that you and your family went through with the separation of your first marriage,
Yes.
have your brothers put in any BFAs now knowing what you've been through?
No, I don't believe so. I've never asked them in the last couple of years, but I don't think so. And my personal opinion because both my brothers haven't been through a divorce, but my personal opinion, and I feel if everybody could do it, it would save you a lot of money through a divorce because the only people who win are the lawyers really, but also a lot of heartache because if you're setting it up from day one and you're both on the same page, and like you were mentioning to me before we started that you can change it at any time, I think what it does is just remove the uncertainty. Like, if you don't make it together, where you land.
Yeah.
So I feel like everyone should do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going through that process, you said it's complex,
Mhm.
setting up a BFA. What are the complexities around it? Do the lawyers make it hard? Is it just there's lots of things you've got to cover off to make sure you've covered everything? Is it just coming to that agreement? What is the hard thing about it?
For me, I find the complexity is because whenever you're doing this, you're in your best place, right? So you're in a happy marriage. And so you have to imagine if things didn't work out and then trying to be quite factual about it. And I think that is the most important part. But my natural way is like, oh, it'll all be fine. And it's quite hard to be, for me, I just find it really tricky to be, well, I bought in this much, you've got this. And then you have to look at every year what's happened together and what you've accumulated together. But then also, because my husband still chooses to work in his academic world as well, and then if you weren't to separate, you've got to look back at like what he gave up for a couple of years for me for Kylo, and then that comes into the equation and gets added on. Like I think it's just complicated in terms of the detail, maybe is probably what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then just you can't be as giving as what you would want to be, if that makes sense. You've got to be a bit harder about it. Whereas when you're happy, you don't really care.
No.
Because everything's everyone's, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But it's not really.
And nothing will go wrong.
Nothing will go wrong.
No, it's interesting. You have to be clear. You have to assert your position, and you have to try not to be emotional.
Yeah, you've got to remove all emotion and ego.
And also, I presume, come to some compromises as well. I mean, you don't get everything you ask for.
Yeah.
So that's a tricky one. Okay, tell me, we've touched on the structure of your family. So if we go through that, your parents are first generation and your dad had a previous marriage. You have two brothers from his marriage and you are the only child from your mother and father. And there is a third generation as well. So tell me about the second generation, what ages and how many children and how involved they might be in this family legacy of the McDonald's
Yes.
franchise.
So my eldest brother is not in McDonald's and he has his own restaurant and he has two children with his wife. And then my other brother has, I think, 8 McDonald's stores now. Yeah, he is busy. He's done incredible and he has a wife and 3 children. And then there's me with my 3 children. And what's interesting from that perspective is 2 of my children will be allowed to have the right to McDonald's and one of my youngest won't.
Why? Oh, yes. No, because your
Yes, and
first husband. Yeah.
that was probably for me the hardest part because I'm like, well, even if I'm not even saying any of my children will want that, but he
So there
won't
is-
have that
Yeah,
opportunity
yeah.
because now I'm not in McDonald's. So,
No.
yeah.
So it's still, that legacy still continues.
Mhm.
And that's not to say he couldn't ever have a franchise.
Well, I don't know because I don't have McDonald's and it's same for my eldest brother. He doesn't have McDonald's. So does his children and one of my children wouldn't have because they're not generationally attached. Whereas my brother who has McDonald's, his children are now second generation to that. There's only second gen.
Interesting.
I don't know how it goes after that.
No.
Whether I could say for my youngest, but my parents would he have? I'm not sure. I don't think it works quite like that.
Interesting.
They're very strict.
Yeah, so there is still consideration of that family legacy through the
Mhm.
next generation. And your parents, do they still have?
They're in their 70s and they only sold their last 2 stores last year.
Wow.
I know, incredible. So I think they held on because they could and it's great cash flow. And then I know from their perspective, not that I know the details as such, but I know they are working through everything they're doing right now is about the structure for the grandchildren because you've got 3 children that all have different financial setup because of their own choices. And so their focus is to make sure that the grandchildren are evenly taken care of, regardless of what us children have done. Those grandchildren have to be all allowed equal financially. That's their focus.
There is this concept in this great intergenerational wealth transfer that's happening over now in the next few decades. And the idea that the generation with the wealth is going to pass over the next generation to so from your first generation past the second and straight to the third.
Yes.
Because your parents will still have so much life left in them and by the time they do pass that wealth on, you almost don't need it in a way.
Correct.
So are they considering that? Are they considering just skipping the second gen and straight to the third?
Well, I know because they have shopping centres that they're in the process over the next couple of years of completely retiring. And I know with the sale of those, that's why there's so much conversation around what do we do with that money for each grandchild. Like that's their focus is setting up the grandchildren, not us kids, because they're like, you guys are all fine and we really need, and I think with where the world's going, it's such an uncertain AI jobs. What is that they want to make sure that they're really taken care of and carefully taken care of where you're not spoiled either. Like it might be a time thing, they don't get it all until much, much later in their life.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really interesting conversation. And I guess I've got 2 questions here. One is, how do you and your brothers as the second gen feel about this? Do you?
Yeah. Like, how do I feel? I think it's amazing. I feel like I've had the most incredible upbringing. I feel I have been fully supported every step of the way by my parents in terms of, backing the directions I want to go in and entrusting the choices that I make, that I feel like as a grown woman, being able to make my own way through the guidance of my parents' early days, definitely with buying properties.
Absolutely.
And I don't know how my brothers genuinely feel. I haven't had that conversation with them because it's all literally in the last few weeks, these conversations are coming up. But I think it's fantastic. Like, I want to make sure that my children are taken care of. I'm not too worried about, I feel like I have a good life. Yeah. So
it leads me to my next question. How do you make decisions as a family? And if you think about it from a two-pronged approach, the kind of business or the wealth side, those decisions, and then the family decisions, how do you, is there any structures in place? Do you sit down and talk about these topics?
I think those conversations are, because we're going through how we're setting everything up in case we ever got through a divorce, etc. Now we're setting up, we already are diversified in our financial, like we have property and we have investments, etc. And so we already have that. But our conversations have been more around how do we not ruin our children. I want to have that for my kids, what my parents instilled in me around work ethic. And there's nothing you can't have if you commit to it. Like, if you go and work hard, you don't take, you earn. My parents were always really like, you take nothing, you earn it. And I want that for my children. I have seen wealth with different people and they grow up with an expectation, a chip on their shoulder and do nothing. That would kill me if my children were like that. And so that's my focus, and how we set up everything else, I think, will just be over the next few years as we get a deeper structure of the businesses being a bit more bedded down. So we're so new, really, 8 years old as a first business, and start to set that up. But number one thing is I want my children I take them on some of the journeys. I've taken them overseas and to work and to some of the bigger meetings, especially my eldest. I just want them to work for whatever they choose. As long as I don't care what they do, just be happy, but work for it.
Yes. Yeah.
There's no, I don't buy them things all the time or any of that.
I love that.
Strict on that stuff.
Yes. Yes. Still trying to instill some good values and the value of hard work, which you grew up with.
Yes.
Yeah.
My parents were not the parents that just bought things. Like, I didn't even really realize my parents were as wealthy as they were until much later into like my mid-late 20s, because it wasn't about things.
So what made you realize?
I just remember much later in my 20s, and they'd sold a property and Mum said, we're going to go shopping today. And I was like, okay. And she's like, you can choose whatever you like. I think I was like 26. I was married. And I was like, oh, how good's this? But then it really hit me, whereas they hadn't done that before.
Yes.
Like, I'd always bought my own things, and my parents were always about birthday and Christmas. And I remember the beginning of the year, you'd always get your clothes for the year, like your summer and your winter when you were teenagers. But it wasn't always, we had holidays, but because you're not being bought things all the time, even toys and stuff, didn't grow up with crazy amounts of stuff. And so it wasn't until then, and I think when you're in your you're in your early 20s, you're just living your life. Like, you're not really thinking. It didn't really hit me until, my mid to late 20s, where I went, oh, yeah.
And it sounded like they potentially reinvested a lot of their money into good decisions, small businesses, more investments.
Yes. Yeah, they were flashy in that way. They always had a beautiful home, great cars. But even when I was saving money at 18, 19, my dad would be like, what are you doing with that? And he's like, you need to buy property with that. And so, I was 21 when I bought my first property, and all my friends were like, what are you doing? That's a commitment. But and then I lived at home and I rented it out. And back then, you could do those things.
Yeah.
So I think, but that they were the conversations at home, not like go shopping or, well, it's different now, but
That's fascinating.
I think they were clever.
Yeah, very clever. And I mean, getting on the property ladder at 18, 19, such a good choice.
So I feel so lucky because the house that I bought 19 years ago now, a new farm, would never have been able to bought that had I not had those few properties first. Because then I sold was it 2007, in that big year that a lot of people were selling, I sold them all and then had the cash to go and buy a home in New Farm.
Yes.
Like, so lucky.
So
Like,
hard work,
hard
though.
work,
Hard
yes.
work, and having the guidance.
Yes. My parents were always, and my dad was always like, well, you could buy another property now because you're still living at home
Yes.
and rent that out. So it was always that little bit of
I love
risk.
that.
Whereas my brothers were like, what are you doing?
Well, okay, so they grew up in the same environment, but with the same advice and guidance, but you took one path and they took a different path.
They took a different path, but I think I grew up my whole life with two parents. They grew up between lives, and it wasn't until they were much later that they lived full time with us in their later teenage years. And one of my brothers was incredible. Like, he traveled all around the world, and he was in like more the stockbroking, and that was his jam, and he was always putting money there. And then he came back sort of later and did McDonald's. So I think, yeah, I remember my dad talking to them about properties, and they were like, oh, we don't want that commitment. Maybe it's typical boys, you know.
Oh, I think that's typical early 20s as
Yeah,
well.
true.
It does feel like a big ball and chain if you buy a property.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I just was excited about property really young.
Yeah, and maybe it didn't feel like such a commitment because you weren't living in it as well. It was a non-emotional
Correct.
investment purchase, and you were removed from it on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah,
which
and
is
it was able to financially work because I was living at home.
yes, and someone was paying the rent,
Correct.
and the mortgage. Love that.
Yeah, so I think, and as I said, I grew up listening to my parents all the time. You know, forever that teamwork around what they were doing next. Properties I was always in the backseat of the car where they were looking at properties, whether it was commercial or residential. So I guess I was able to have that, whereas my brothers didn't get that same upbringing.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And what do you think you learnt specifically from your mum?
Wow, so many things. My mum is an absolute go-getter. She would run circles around anybody I know still in her 70s. Like, she could get on that drive-through floor tomorrow and still be better than a 15-year-old. I learned that there is nothing you cannot do. You just get up and do it. And I think she's very organized, structured. In a big crisis, she's phenomenal. Like, she can just come into a really, all right, this is what we're going to do. Like, she is the backbone of everything. There's nothing. Yeah, I just know that you just get up and you get going.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, that's
I don't
amazing.
know how else to explain my mum
Yeah.
other than, for some people, she can come across a little scary at first because she's so like on. Yeah.
Amazing.
But yeah, because there's no like drama or just do it.
Yeah.
Get on with it.
Yeah. If you want it, go get it.
Yeah.
I love that. I'd like to finish. Thank
Mhm.
you for sharing your story so honestly and thoughtfully. And I've learnt so much. I want to finish with a couple of questions that I ask all my guests.
Yes.
And the first one is, when you think about the future of your family,
Mm-hmm.
what matters the most to you?
Always health, number one. Want nothing more than for there to be a healthy environment in all aspects, not just physical health, mental health. I want my children in a good environment. But when I think about their future, because it seems quite uncertain in where we're going with AI coming, I think we have to be really open about that and see that we genuinely don't know what their jobs will look like. And I want to make sure that there is a structure for them that allows them security in their life to be able to make choices around. I want them to choose their job because they're passionate about it, not because it's based on money. As my number one thing for all of my kids, choose what you want because you love what you do. Yeah.
And do you think about the future of your children's lives in different ways? And this is a concept, the sort of fair versus equal concept, where not every child is the same.
Correct. Yeah.
And I know, not all of my children are the same, and not all of your children are the same. Do you have different wishes for each of your different children?
I guess I've never really thought about different wishes for them. I think the number one wish I want for all of them is I want them to just be committed to what they do. I think it would be hard if you're trying to make sure everything's equal, but one is not committing, but another is committing more, why does one get rewarded but doesn't have to put the same effort in? So I'm pretty, what's the word? I wouldn't want to be, I guess it comes back to that. I just want them to have work ethic, but I just want them to know that whatever they put their mind to, they can achieve. Like, that's all I just want them to be happy, good, and just good, integral humans. Like, do the right thing, sit in integrity, be honest. They're the things you want.
Yeah.
Be good people.
Be productive.
Yes. Don't be
Yeah.
lazy.
Yeah.
That's I can't do. And don't use the word can't. Yes, you can. Got to be a bit of tough love, bit of disappointment in life,
absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's still a really important value, that resilience and grit. We talk about it all the time. And how do you instill it in your children? And I think that sometimes life is tough. Right?
Yeah, not everyone's a winner. And I just remember a behavioral specialist. Once I heard somewhere, and I've stuck to it, your children need some form of disappointment every day. And I stick to that. There's a lot of no's in our house. Like, no. And then they're like, oh, if everything's just easy and a yes, and yep, you can have the iPad. And so there's a lot of structure and rules around all of those things, because otherwise, I don't know where they're going otherwise. Like, life is a little easy. ChatGPT, all of that.
This lifestyle we all live now in 2026 is a much easier lifestyle than, your parents, my parents grew up in. Just the concept of, being able to have hot showers and, mobile phones and, being able to travel overseas so easily.
They were all things that people did not get to do back.
No.
And it's funny though, my daughter who's 12, she always says, I wish I grew up in your time. It's almost like they subtly know that we had a better time. We were more present. We were more connected. If there's anything I want for them, is to still be part of community and connected, because that's probably the biggest worry for them, for all of our children going in this next journey with technology. It's not as good as what we had it.
No, it can be isolating in a way.
Yeah, mental health is on the rise massively. Like, we actually have more concerns as a parent to this generation. We're the first parents doing this.
Yes.
We're making so many mistakes that we don't even know we're making yet. We're the research that they'll do in 30 years on us.
And it's interesting, as a generation, we grew up without technology and with technology. We are this bridge generation.
Mm-hmm.
And I struggle with that as well, raising my children. And we've taken a harder approach on tech than others, because I want my children to have the lifestyle I had.
Well, and freedom to think.
Climbing trees.
Like, how can you be creative, or if you are never, like, if you're doing this all day, scrolling, we're not meant to do that all day. Our brains are not wired to, it's the creativity piece for our children's brains. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. Okay, next question. What is one belief or value you are intentionally trying to pass to the next generation? I think I know the answer to this one, but maybe you'll surprise me. It's something new.
I think the number one thing that I would want to pass to my children, and it's what I have learned, is always know financially where you sit when you enter into a marriage. Don't trust somebody else. And I'm not saying this actually because there was any distrust around money, but what I mean by trust, if you don't know where you sit and where money's being spent, and then things don't go well, that is not a healthy place to be in. I think it's really, really important to have some form of control and make sure that, like, you're a 50-50 with your partner, where you walk together, not one behind each other or one in front of the other. That would be the one thing I would pass on, is just be across everything and be really in it.
And don't assume someone else is taking care of it all.
No, because you can't then blame them either if things don't go well. You have to blame yourself in that too. There's two people that a relationship doesn't work out. It's not on one person. But if I look back at my first marriage, I had no idea. I really took that role differently to how I am today. Now I am the complete opposite across everything. Yes. And it's very empowering. And it's not even about male or female. I think, I've got 2 sons and a daughter. I want all 3 of them to be very involved in their life.
Yes. And what are some of the practical things that you think people can do just to make sure that they've got a seat at the table in those discussions?
I think every relationship should have 2 to 3 sessions of counselling on money, because where you're bringing 2 different upbringings always. It doesn't matter if you've got similar upbringings. How you see and value money is so different. Even my now husband, he's come from save, save, save. We've come from risk, risk, risk. So he's met me and gone, oh my gosh, like we're so far out on a limb sometimes. And I think for my children, I just want them to be involved. And I think how they could do that is with their partner, their future person, that you have shared bank accounts. Everything is like visual.
Yes.
And you have meetings once a month on where things are set up together. But I think having a few sessions on each other's values around
financial
money.
psychology and values. I love that.
Financial wellness to me is the number one next big thing I think that should be. We all need to take responsibility and learn and understand it. I used to be that person that all seems a bit complicated. Now I'm like, I'm in it. I'm
I want to know what's going on.
I hate doing that.
Yes. Yes.
I hate it.
What do you think? Do you think something clicked for you at a certain point, aside from the divorce, which is a huge thing to go through? But would you say that understanding your financial position and choices, you love it now, or and what do you think? You know, there's a spectrum of emotion around finance, and one is just being fearful of it, I guess, is one end of the spectrum, and the other end is love. And somewhere in the middle is kind of just resolution and acceptance, how did you get to loving, knowing what your position was? I think being accountable for not being across it. I think you have to have that self-reflection side that took years, that like where you can go from angry to, well, hold on a minute. Did I get involved? I did not. I am to blame for that side. And I think that reflection, as confronting as that is, to look at yourself and go, well, I ended up here because I made you can't change anything in life if you keep making those same choices, right? And so I had to look at, well, how do I want to do things differently? Accountability. You have to be accountable every step of the way, good or bad. Be accountable, remove your ego, see it for what it is. Don't blame someone else. You can't blame the other person in your marriage either. My ex-husband is not a bad person. And you go through this fight for years and years and years. It's all ego. So for me, I love it because I'm choosing to be accountable, and I've come out of the uncomfortable side of that into that feels good to be accountable. Yeah. Empowering.
It is. It feels better to be honest with yourself and honest in whether you're leading a team, whatever. Yep, that was me. And how can I do it better next time? It's the best feeling.
Oh, I love that. That's such a great one. Okay, final question for you. What does family mean to you beyond wealth?
Oh, family is everything. I think it's purpose. It's why you get up in the morning. I think it's the lessons you learn from your own children. Family is, it is like it is. I don't even know if there's a word for the love of your own family. But for me, each child teaches me something. One might teach you a lot more patience than you realize that yet.
Oh my gosh, yes.
One teaches you to find a voice and advocate for your child. I think finding your voice in that as a mum and as a parent. So family it's your own community, I guess. Yeah.
I love that. Christy, thank you for your honesty and thoughtfulness you've brought to this conversation. I'm deeply grateful for your time and for sharing your story so generously. If this conversation resonated with you, I invite you to follow the podcast and share it with others who may find value in these stories. You can find all episodes along with additional insights and resources at kinexis.au/significant women podcast. Thank you.